moving on to our next speaker, who I'm making a presenter right now, is Principal Biologist Chris Smith. Chris has been with the division for quite a long time at this point, and as an avid bass angler himself, he really enjoys increasing angling opportunities for largemouth bass in the state of New Jersey, and he's done a lot of great work over the years. He's going to have a presentation here that I think will also be quite enjoyable and educational. So take it away, Chris.
Thanks again, Sean. It's a pleasure getting to speak to everybody this morning. It's been a number of years since we've actually gone over some of this information. I'm going to talk to you this morning about our wildlife management area, bass tournament permits, and the results. So for one second, we're having technical difficulties. All right, there we are. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, the WMA tournament permit process has actually been around since 1994. I myself have been handling the program since 1999, so we're working on a little over 20 years now that I've been issuing these permits to everybody. So what exactly is, do we mean, by this permitting system, and, what is actually required? So a permit's required on all wildlife management areas, and regardless of what species that you're fishing. So the results that we're going to go over today, and most of the information is pertaining to bass. However, if you want to have a crappie tournament, trout tournament, catfish tournament on any of our wildlife management areas, you would have to get a permit for it. But again, because most of our data is centered around the bass tournaments, that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, any organized fishing event. So occasionally I do get requests for fishing derbies, some kid events, children's events. So anything, whether it's 5 boats or 10 people, whether you're fishing in a boat, fishing from shoreline, whether there's money exchanging hands or not, or whether, prizes are handed out or not, as long as it's an organized fishing event, you need a permit to get, to have one. So with that, currently, we do not have a fee. When the program started back in the 90s, there was a fee associated with it, but well over probably about 15 years now, we have not been collecting any fee associated with getting a permit. I do take applications as of January 1st every year. Anglers or organizations are able to submit prior to January 1st, but they go into the general pool. And we start looking at them and approving them after January 1st. So what are the benefits of this permitting and reporting process? Well, it originally started in the 90s with major conflicts. Boat ramp conflicts is where it really started, particularly at Assunpink. And from that, we found a lot of added benefits for us, for our agency, that we see out of issuing these permits and the associated reports. Well, first of all, it allows Fish and Wildlife to actively monitor bass populations without sampling. This passive information that we're able to collect annually, we get, well over, 100, almost 200, applications a year. So we can collect all this information passively and to really monitor and track, populations without sampling. Additionally, we can also supplement our existing data that we have, if we're out electrofishing, doing some seining surveys. It's great information to kind of compare our results with what anglers are catching. And more in recent years, we're able to collect some additional information on some of our water bodies regarding invasive species, particularly the snakehead. Places like the Salem Canal, the DOD, where we have well-established snakehead populations, we added a little field on there so that anglers are now reporting to us how many snakeheads they're also catching at these locations while they're having bass tournaments. We can get other information too on other fisheries like the DOD that's been stocked with muskies. Anglers are reporting when they catch a muskie during a tournament. So again, great information that we're getting. So and it really does help us guide future management activities by seeing these long-term trends that are going on, which I'm going to show you a couple of those here in just a couple minutes. So where exactly do we need a permit? Well, as I've already said, you need a permit on all wildlife management area water bodies. Now, big or small, again, all the water bodies. But see, this list that I have up on the screen is 22 of our more popular water bodies. I can go through the list and you can see that we have Assunpink, the DOD, Elmer, Maple Lake, Maskell's Mill Pond, Menanico Sand Ponds, Pemberton Lake, Rainbow Lake, Rising Sun. We do have Round Valley Reservoir and Salem Canal both on that list, despite not being as brought up as a question previously regarding the, Round Valley is a state parks lake. However, the boat ramp is a wildlife management area. Salem Canal, same thing. The boat ramp is a wildlife management area, so we do require a permit on those two locations also. Stone Tavern and Union Lake to kind of round out, and one of our newer additions, Shepherd's Mill Pond, is also on that list. But like I said, if there's a small water body, occasionally Amwell Lake, there's a number of fishing derbies that some scouting groups have had in the past, and we have issued permits too for those locations. But these are our more popular of our bass spots that for tournaments. So just a distribution map. As I was putting this together recently, the talk, I kind of realized that this is the same map that I was using back, I think in the very first fisheries forum that we ever had in 2004, 2005. So I think it's probably about time that we probably update the map. But a couple things have changed in recent years. With the map, I've added some stars where we added some additional waters. Some newer lakes that we started receiving permits for. Number one, Split Rock Reservoir. In 2020, we received our first application. That's up in North Jersey. And then Shepherd's Mill Pond, 2018, Lake Audrey, 2017, and Salem Canal in 2012 were some of our newer additions to this permitting system. Another highlight that we have is Columbia Lake, which previously was a wildlife management area lake. That dam has been decommissioned on the pond scale a few years ago, and the lake is no longer there. So just a few changes. The one notable is the distribution. So most of our larger wildlife management area lakes are in the southern and central part of the state. And you'll see in the results that this really translates to the distribution of species. You'll see a lot more largemouth bass are caught than smallmouth bass, just by the nature of where most of our wildlife management areas are. So when an organization or an angler or an individual group wants to apply for a permit, there's a simple application process. The application is available on our website. Fill it out, print it out, email it to me, mail it, by postal. So once we get the application, we review it, alleviate any conflicts that we have, suggest alternative dates if it does conflict with a already scheduled event. We issue a permit, you hold your event, and then within 2 weeks after you hold your event, you send in a report form. We can collect a lot of great information, and this is where the real benefit, aside from alleviating these conflicts, this is where we as an agency really get our information. We're able to find out the date, the time of the year when the event occurred, what time of day it occurred, whether it was a daytime or nighttime event, how long it was, the duration of the event, what type of format. Was this an individual tournament? Was it a buddy tournament? Was it a club tournament? Was it an open tournament? Then the number of teams, the number of individuals, and then the fish information, the creel limit, size limit, number of fish, and so forth. And then with all that information, we have a lot of data, to say the least. So we've tried to go over, and as I said, I've kind of given a similar talk in years past, and when we've had our events at Batstow, and I've kind of given our our South Jersey summary of sampling and our electrofishing results, and I usually try to throw in a couple slides with some tournament results of that particular year. And each year we do, for our annual report, we have a summary of how many tournaments were held, how many reports we received, what the biggest fish of the year was, what the average size fish was. But we're really starting to get definitely a lot of data. We estimate I'd say there's probably over 3,500 tournaments that have been held over the last 22 years of data is what we have now from 1999 to 2021 is the data that I've dealt with. When it was kind of handed over to me, the process was handed over to me. I do have some files, some older stuff, but it was very incomplete. I modified our report form, after I took over and collected some additional information that wasn't previously being collected. So what I envision and what I'd really like to do over the next couple of years is I want to put together a 25-year history of wildlife management area tournament results. So definitely look for that in the next couple of years. We have a couple more years to go of collecting data, and we're getting a lot of new data that's coming in. It's pretty exciting, and I think it's the next slide. You'll actually see that. So for today's talk, some of the data that I wanted to highlight was the last 5 years. One of our other biologists, Eric Boehm, last spoke on this subject at our forum in 2016 and presented up to about 2015, 2016-ish with the data. I think it was up to 2015. But I wanted to cover the last 5 years, so 2017 to 2021. And kind of the results from that time period. So we've had 802 applications in the last 5 years. We annually get about 160-ish applications a year. Some years a little more, some years a little less. And then we've received 389 tournament reports that have come back to us, which equates to about a 49% return rate. The one thing to note with this, though, is that although it seems rather low, we actually do get a lot more tournament reports that do come back. However, for our needs and for the consistent information that I'm looking for, I kind of have to tease out some of the events, and I end up using about 49% of them. Some of the events where individuals, they don't weigh the fish, they may only fish for one fish, like one fish limits, like a lunker only style tournament. It's kind of hard to compare that information to other more standardized formats where people are fishing for, or organizations are fishing for, a 3-fish limit or a 5-fish limit, and that's a lot easier to compare data. So that is kind of noteworthy, looking at some of these other tables. Also in 2020, like everybody else, tournaments were impacted significantly by COVID. Social distancing guidelines set forth by the state. In early 2020, we had to cancel a lot of our events. 62 in total were canceled. So we lost out on a lot of information for that particular year, but we'll get it back. So you can see from this graph, it's a little busy, a lot of colors going on here. This is 21 water bodies that we received report forms from. Actually, I think this is applications. Sorry, this is applications. So this is where we've, over the last 5 years, we've gotten from 21 locations we got applications for. You can see these spikes in the graph, working our way from left to right. The more popular water bodies are going to be the DOD Lake, Lake Assunpink, Rainbow Lake, even Rising Sun in recent years, Salem Canal, the Stone Tavern Lake here, within the Assunpink Wildlife Management Area, and Union Lake. Definitely some of our more popular water bodies. And consistently too, you can see this is 5 years of data stacked next to each other, and consistently each one of those peaks is about the same in popularity. Angler participation over the last 5 years, we've had a total of 6,719 anglers participate in tournaments in the last 5 years. Again, this is from the reports that we receive, not from the total number of tournaments. So this is a 50%. So if this is representing 50% of our tournaments, we can kind of extrapolate out, roughly that, we might be upwards somewhere of over 13,000 anglers have participated in tournaments, over the last 5 years on our WMAs, which is pretty impressive. Again, on the same note, our angling hours, 45,567 angling hours, in the last 5 years. Again, by doubling it, we could be close to almost, 90,000 angling hours. And that, what an angling hour is the number of participants in an individual event multiplied by the hours that they spent in a tournament. Many tournaments are anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. there's 10 people, multiply it out, and that gives you your angling hours for a tournament. And this is consistent. This is how, every other state, calculates their, their information. So what are people catching? Our total bass caught over the last 5 years. So you can look in the right, we have largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, and total bass. Over on your top right-hand side, you have 7,873 largemouth bass were collected. Again, from the reports we received, 206 smallmouth and a total of 8,405 bass were collected. You can see over here in 2019, we kind of split these numbers in two. And this is really exciting for us. In the past, over the last few years, prior to 2019, we started getting a lot more applications from the kayak groups. I think our South Jersey kayak bass fishing group was one of the first ones in the state to, start submitting, the report forms. And they kind of, the format, because they're catch and release, catch, measure, and immediate release tournaments, the format did not meet our data sheets. So we kind of almost had to put these data sheets on hold. However, in 2019, we're up to about 15-ish, 13, 15 kayak events in the state were held. So now that we actually have a data set, all in itself, we can actually split the information into two, which is why I kind of want to hold off for a few more years before we do this comprehensive report, so that I have a little more data to compare things, which we're definitely excited about with these new formats of tournaments, not just a catch, and weigh tournament. So this slide's a little bit busy. Just going to highlight a few things that are on here. When we look at their average size of bass and what anglers are actually catching size-wise, again, this is statewide averages. This isn't specific to an individual water body. This is all water bodies combined. We can look at the average weight or the average inches, length of a fish. We can calculate out our catch rate, our average lunker size. The lunker is your largest fish that's caught in the event. Usually there's a prize for that. The largest, we can go through and look at our maximum or our biggest fish that was caught each year. And then one of the other staples that we've looked at, over the last 20 years is the number of 5-pound bass that are caught. 5-pound bass is kind of, it's a general, in the tournament world, that's kind of what's considered to be, a large bass, something over 5 pounds. It's a real trophy or lunker. So our average catch rate, it can vary, year to year, and it definitely depends on the number of report forms that we get. The more participants that we have, the more buddy type tournaments, team tournaments that we have, the lower the catch rate ends up being. It draws down the catch rate. However, in single type events, you can see in 2019, 2020, 2021, where we have our kayak events. I wish I had a pointer, but the I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but in 2019 we had 0.22, 2020 we had 0.20, and 2021 we had 0.25 for our catch rate. These were for our kayak events, which is a little bit better indicator of true catch rate than when we factor in buddy tournaments where two individuals are fishing for the same limit. But generally speaking, it takes anywhere between 4 to 5 anglers for the average person fishing in a tournament to catch one fish, is what that equates to. The average size of a lunker bass statewide is going to be somewhere about 3.5 pounds to 3 3/4 pounds. The largest bass collected during this time fish or caught during this time frame, 5 years, was 7.38 pounds. It was caught. I always want to say collected from all of our sampling, but caught from Maskell's Mill Pond in 2017. Definitely noteworthy. It was 2017 had the highest number of 5-pound bass caught, and of which 9 of the 23 bass were recorded from Assunpink Lake. In total, during this time period, we had 76 bass over 5 pounds that were recorded. And then if we go back up to the top, we can see that we had, not only can we look at our average weight, which is about the average weight fish from a tournament is about 1 3/4 pounds, and the average length fish is about about 14.5 to just under 15 inches, which is really good to see. So that's some of our short-term results. When we look at our long-term results, so going back with 22 years of data, history, this is where we can really start to spot our trends. And this is one of the things that really popped up about 15 years ago. We started seeing a major trend at Union Lake. Where the smallmouth bass population, really started, what we believe smallmouth bass population really started to expand. So that the stocking programs for smallmouth bass started around 2000. There was some historic stocking that was done in the past. There was a very, very low density smallmouth population, going back into the 80s. Through the early 90s, but we intensively started stocking smallmouth in the early 2000s in Union, and the population continued to expand for probably about 10 years, where we saw the percentage of what anglers were catching during these tournament reports was in the neighborhood of almost 40% of the total catch. In 2010, 2011, was smallmouth bass. So we were really excited as fisheries managers, as biologists. We were super excited to see this such a successful program, and we started seeing a rather big crash, all of a sudden. So we kind of figured, prior to that, we kind of had a better handle on what was going on, and we knew that actually around the mid 2000s, around 2003, 2004. We started seeing a big decline in our tournament reports of the number of largemouth that were being reported. At the same time, the smallmouth bass population was staying rather consistent, pretty consistently low. They're popping up here and there in catches, but, it wasn't really drastically expanding. But definitely that largemouth population was going down. So there was some statewide sampling that was done due to some other issues up at Lake Apacon, and we found out that in 2007 that we had largemouth bass fires in the state. It was pretty much statewide at that time. Union Lake did test positive for largemouth bass fires back then in 2007. So then we could figure out what exactly was going on. We knew that this population had definitely been impacted, and you can see through this through this graph from 2006 all the way through maybe 2014. The population stayed pretty low. Around 2014, 2015, we really upped our numbers of largemouth bass that we were stocking. Again, it's based on hatchery production, what we're able to produce. We started stocking, more largemouth bass in Union Lake, and we do see a steady, though at a small increase, we do see an increase in the population. On the flip side, you can see this on the blue part of the graph, in the kind of the middle of the graph in 2009, 2010. You can see that the smallmouth bass population, started to increase. And this is where you see, that ratio, that percentage of smallmouth bass to largemouth bass really start to increase. Though we had an increase of smallmouth bass, we also had a significant decline in largemouth bass. So that's where you see them popping up as 40% of the total. So these long-term trends continue at some of the other water bodies. Assunpink Lake is another great example where we can see long-term trends that are occurring back through the through the 90s. If anybody remembers fishing at Assunpink in the 90s, and the lake was constructed, I believe, back in the late 60s. But for years, this has been one of our premier lunker bass lakes, trophy bass lakes, where we manage them under special regulation with a 3-fish creel limit and a 15-inch size limit. And we've produced more 5-pound bass have probably been produced at Assunpink than probably most other water bodies statewide, particular tournament larger water bodies. In 2001, almost 50, I think it was 48 or 49, largemouth in excess of 5 pounds were reported in tournaments, and then, we're down to, almost single digits in 2021. So this is something that we take very seriously. We were looking at this, and this is great information, for us, that we can, that we know that we need to get out there and do some sampling, and we have been over the last few years, and we've tried some stocking. But one of the major issues that we're seeing right now at Assunpink is habitat. And, so it's not only, like a Round Valley situation with, with our trout population of being a forage-based issue, there can be times where there's other issues. And in this case, it's probably a habitat issue. Increased sedimentation, persistence of invasive species such as hydrilla, water chestnuts, loss of habitat. We probably lost a third of our habitat within the lake, which reduces our carrying capacity, for those large 5-pound bass. So hopefully, I'll see it in my career. If not, that the folks after me, maybe we can get a large scale dredging and restoration project going on in Assunpink. We keep pushing for it. We keep hoping to try to reset this lake back to what it once was and get it back to the trophy fishery that we know that it can be. So looking forward, we'll continue to collect tournament data. It's great information. Definitely continue to send in your reports, any tournament anglers that are on the call today. We're going to revise some of our tournament reports. I'm hoping to get them out here in the next couple of weeks with the permits going out, and have some revisions to the tournament report forms a little bit, just to clarify some stuff with some improved instructions on filling out those forms, so we can use more of these reports can actually be utilized. Figure out ways that we can collect additional information like we are with the snakeheads, and then we're looking forward to that summary report here in a couple of years, highlighting the last 25 years. So with that, that's it, and I'll thank everybody, and I'll take any questions. My information's up on the screen in case anybody wants to shoot me an email or give me a call.
Nice job, Chris. Thanks for sharing all that with us. We greatly appreciate it. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and this, as Chris said, this passive sampling method is very valuable. I mean, at the end of the day, the largemouth bass fisheries are only as good as anglers are able to catch them. So, that's basically right to the user group. It's an indication how well the fisheries are doing, where additional management is needed. And I think we have time for one question here. Okay. As always,
got one question, sir.
There we go. Yep.
Just was wondering, we've noticed in Montville at both Mazer Pond as well as Montauk, a large increase in the number of snapping turtles. We were wondering if you have any ideas on that, if it's just local here or whether it's statewide trending.
Yeah, I can't say whether or not we have good data on that. If anybody knows more than I do, please jump in. But I could just throw out there that the harvest of snapping turtles is something that has declined over time. So maybe there has been a turtler or two that has harvested snapping turtles for consumption, either from a recreational standpoint or from a commercial standpoint. So in some places, we've seen less and less turtlers, and then you have a rapid response in turtle populations. But other than that, I can't say that we have any monitoring information. We do have a reptile biologist by the name of Brian Zarati. You might want to look him up, and he might have a turtle-specific answer for you. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Let me transition to our next speaker as we're approaching 12 o'clock. Just a reminder to everybody that if you go to our website and you see that map that I showed you earlier that has different regional biologist names, if you hover over that, you can shoot emails directly to each biologist. If there's anything that we don't get to today, please feel free to do that. Our next speaker, senior wildlife worker Kyle Civalier, is going to be showing us a little bit about the program that he took over, which is our Skillful Angler program. So I'm going to make Kyle a presenter here. And once again, I think this is probably another feel-good presentation. So Kyle, take it away.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can, Kyle. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Sean, for that. As you can see, my name is Kyle Civalier, and I'm a senior wildlife worker with the Bureau of Freshwater Fisheries. And I'm going to be going over just a quick overview of what the program is, how to apply for it, what you get, that type of thing. Yeah, there we go. So what actually is the Skillful Angler program? It was a recognition program started in 1983 to supplement our state record program. We use it as a way to identify and recognize those anglers who catch large fish that they might not be record size, but it's still a big enough fish to really test their skills. We recognize 43 different species, 23 in freshwater and 20 in saltwater. And since the program began in 1983, we've awarded around 4,150 certificates. I'm hoping that that continues to, we can just keep awarding more and more, and the fishing gets even better and better in Jersey. So how does the program actually work? The whole program is broken up into 4 divisions. We have our adult division, which is for anglers 16 years and older, and this division is based on the fish's actual weight. Then we have our junior division, which is for our anglers 16 under, so 15 and under. That one is also based on weight as well. The next we have is our catch and release. This one is based on length instead of weight, overall length. And then we have our first fish division. I just want to go over quick about what that is. We have I've had a couple people apply for it and they didn't quite understand. So for first fish, it's actually the actual first fish you've ever caught. We've had some people say that, here's the first bass I ever caught, but they've caught other fish, or this is the first skillful angler fish that I've applied for, but it is actually for those individuals that catch their first fish ever. You do receive a specialized certificate. It's a little different than just the regular skillful angler certificate, which I'll show you later. But in those divisions, we also have 4 categories that you can apply for. And you can apply for any of these in any different way. So the first one is specialist, which is 5 qualifying fish of the same species. So if you catch 5 qualifying chain pickerel, you will be awarded a specialist angler certificate. Our master angler, which is 5 qualifying fish of 5 different species. So if you catch a chain pickerel, yellow perch, white perch, sunfish, and largemouth bass, you will be awarded a master angler certificate. And then we also have our elite angler, which is just you submit 10 qualifying fish of any species. So it doesn't matter if it's 10 of the same species or 5 and 5 anyway, as long as it's 10, and those will be awarded an elite angler certificate. Then we also just have our single species category, which is you fish pretty good amount, but you're not trying to get any of those other 3. You can just put it in a single species and you'll still get a certificate. And then we also have our 3 specific slams that you can apply for. So the first one is our bass slam, which is you catch 1 largemouth, 1 smallmouth bass. Our trout slam, which is catch 1 qualifying rainbow, brown, and brook trout. And then also our panfish slam, which is you catch 1 crappie, 1 sunfish, and then 1 yellow perch. And at the end of the year, we announce the winners for each one of those divisions on our website. Just a real quick, this is our breakdown of how the species, the adult, junior, catch and release, what your minimum requirements are. So as you can see, for largemouth bass, if you want to go for the adult category, it has to be 6 pounds or more. For junior, it'd be 4 pounds or more. And then for catch and release, it just has to be 21 inches or more. As Sean noted, this will be recorded, so you can look at this anytime, or you can also visit our website, and this is on the website, the Skillful Angler page as well. So just to go over the quick application process, so you caught your fish, you know that it is, let's say it's a largemouth, it's bigger than 21 inches, what do? First thing, of course, is you want to put that bass on a board, a measuring board of some type, and make sure that it is visible and you can read the board and you can read the length of the fish. But we have our application online. You can fill it out on a PDF and email it to New Jersey Skillful Angler, or you can mail it in, where you can mail it in the next slide. But in that application, you must include a picture of that fish on a measuring device and make sure it's legible. It can be, regular measuring tape, it can be a bump board if you do have one of those. And then for our adult and junior divisions, these fish must be weighed on a certified scale. Most tackle shops and either butchers or something like that do have a certified scale, so you can take it there and have it weighed. We also do encourage everybody who applies to submit high quality photos of you with the fish. I know it's hard if you're fishing by yourself to get a really high res photo, but if you can, it's great. We'd like to use those on our Fridays, on our website. If you do end up leading for that fish type at that time, your picture will be put up on the website as long with your name so everybody can see it. And then just you can either email it to this email address or also mail it. Here's a quick. This is what one of our freshwater applications looks like. So you'll fill out the top part, your name, address, phone number, email. Then you decide what entry division you'd like to be put into, and you fill out the species to the best of your ability. If you're just doing catch and release, the girth and weight, they're not necessary, but if you'd like to include it, you can. And then where you caught it from, and then just a little bit of what you use to catch the fish: rod, reel, bait, lure, and then your categories. Now for these categories, you can apply for pretty much all of them at the same time. So if you catch a northern pike and you think you're going to catch 5 of those fish, you can apply for specialist, also master, also elite. The first fish is more or less the only one that's by itself, but even if you've never fished before and you catch a very big bass, you can try to catch more of those. And then on the other side, you got your trout slams, bass slams, and panfish slams, like I said before. And then just real quick for the certification for adult and junior divisions, when you do take it to the tackle shop or butcher or whoever has a certified scale, they will have to fill this out. So they will have to give their full name and then give us a signature, and then your signature and date as well. And then on our application, it does say to send everything to our CRO office, or Aspen Wildlife Management Area at 1 Eldridge Road. But since I've taken it over, I work out of our field office in Lebanon. So if you do want to mail it, you can send it to the address there, 1255 County Route 629, PO Box 394, and then I'll get it and respond to you, letting you know that I've received everything. Then I just want to give a quick overview of some issues with measuring that I've seen since I've taken it over. I just want to let you guys know that if you do submit something that is incorrectly measured, I can't let you win for the year. Most of the time you may still get a certificate, but I'd like to get everybody knowing what correct and incorrect is. So for this one, as you can see, the fish is far away from the measuring tape. The measuring tape is clear that you can read it, but the fish is quite far away and it's taken from like a low degree angle. We'd like to see the fish actually on top of the measuring tape with the mouth closed, and then you want to be right above it so that everything is readable and you can see everything perfectly, so I don't have to try to extrapolate with a piece of paper to really know the real length of the fish. On this one as well, this one is up and above the fish and the measuring tape is right next to it, but having the fish in the net can throw off the measuring, and I can't 100% say, read where the end of the tail is. Maybe that fish is longer than it actually is, or shorter. Also, the fish's mouth is open with a BOGO grip. We want to see that fish's mouth completely closed to get its true length. And then this one, as you can tell, the fish's mouth is wide open, so that length of that fish is not its true length. So if even if you got a 23-inch bass and the winner is 21, I can't let you win, unfortunately, because procedure wasn't followed. But so if you catch something like that, you want to make sure you measure properly so that you can win for the year. And then I just wanted to go over a couple real good pictures, just some examples of what I'm looking for measuring. So as you can see here, the fish's mouth is closed. It's all the way up against the edge of the board. It's a direct above, top down. You can see everything. You can read the measuring board, perfectly. So this is exactly what I'd like to see. Same with here. You can see the chink pickerel's mouth is closed. It's all the way up against the top of the board. You can read everything easily, specifically, and the tail is straight. And then this is one of the most common things besides having the fish's mouth open is people measuring the fish from tail to mouth. It's okay, but I'd much rather it be seen from the mouth at 0 all the way than the tail going that way, just to make it easier. You can have a little bit of issues with this, just with if the tail's not all the way up at 0, if it moves a little bit. So just try to get the picture with the mouth of the fish on 0 and then going to the right. So after you've applied and sent it to me, What do you get? So once you apply and your fish has been accepted, you will receive a personalized certificate like the one on the right. It will say your name, it will say the type of fish that you applied for, the length if it's catch and release, if it is adult or junior, it will have the length as well as the weight, and then the body of water you caught it on, as well as a signature from our assistant commissioner, as well as the date. Now, I'm sure people, you don't want, not everybody wants people to know where they caught their fish, but just so everybody knows, nothing that you put on there where it's caught will be given to the public at all. It's solely just for you. So you don't have to worry about, anybody knowing where you caught the large fish or not. You will also receive a qualifying patch. And then at the end of the year, you will also receive the winners that won for that species and division for the year will also receive a specialized winner certificate and a patch. And then just going over a little bit of the freshwater Skillful Angler program statistics from last year. We received 169 applications last year compared to 104 in 2020. And then also in 2019, we had 95, so it has been increasing every year since I've taken it over. I'm hoping that continues to climb and we get more and more applications. We had 18 different species submitted by 68 different anglers. And as you can see on the bar graph on the left, our number of applications for each species, and our crappie had the most submissions with 24, followed by sunfish with 21. And our catch and release category was actually our most popular with 155, followed by our first fish with 10. We actually had a lot of first fish this year, which I'm excited about. Hopefully those anglers get real excited that they've caught fish and they continue to fish and continue to catch big fish. Now I just wanted to go over a little bit about the breakdown of each one of our categories and slams. So for our specialist category, we had 12 anglers enter 30 different species, and of those 12 anglers, 7 completed their specialist. Crappie being the most common specialist certificate awarded. Our master category, we had 7 anglers submit and 3 of them completed. Christopher, Dwayne, and Frank are the ones that completed those. And then our elite angler, which is the 10 different qualifying fish, 10 qualifying fish total. We had 8 entered for that, but only 3 completed it, and Christopher, Dwayne, and Frank also completed that as well. And then for our slams, we had 2 anglers enter trout. Unfortunately, they did not complete those. We had 9 anglers submit bass slam entries, 5 of those were completed. And then we had 11 anglers submit for panfish, and 2 of those were completed. And then for what updates for 2022, I am in the process with our I&E department of creating a new patch. I'm hoping to have that done soon so that I can send them out for everybody who got their patch in got their certificate for 2021 but has not received their patch yet. And then also I'm in the process of discussing a new category. It has been submitted through email a couple times by a couple different anglers that they'd like to see a new category for 10 totally different species being caught. I don't have a name yet for that, so if anybody has any ideas or possible names for that category, you can send me an email at the New Jersey Skillful Angler at dep.nj.gov, or at the end of this presentation, you can let me know and I'll write it down, and hopefully we can get some good name that everybody will like to have. And then just wanted to show a couple of our, what these high res photos really look like and what you can use them for. Like I said earlier, these type of photos can be used on our Go Fish Fridays, on our website, on our Instagram, our Facebook. But these are the type of high quality photos that we'd like to see. Now I know it's hard to do it when you're fishing by yourself. Try your best. Maybe if you have a chair, you can prop your phone up and take it that way. But if you can get us one of these high quality photos, we'll try to use it to the best of our ability. Also, just a quick update on the photos is that any photo you do send to us, we do have that photo as our property, so we can use it for any presentations on our website, anything like that. But does anybody have I'm good. I'm done. So if anybody has any questions, I can take them now.
Yeah, Kyle, I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
Okay, I can speak?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure I wasn't overstepping somebody. A number of years ago, I caught a record state black crappie. I took the crappie, knowing that it was measuring 18 3/4 inches long, that it was close to a state record. Took it alive to my local Grand Union, had him weighed on the scale with the deli manager there present. I presented the paperwork to the state of New Jersey that you know, I caught this fish and actually brought it back to a location, released it. And I was turned away from the program because they said I needed to have 2 witnesses. I witnessed it, the deli manager witnessed it, but found out that you need to have 2 witnesses besides yourself. Is that still the case today?
So I'm not part. I don't run the record program, but I'm sure Sean, I'm sure knows that. He can answer that for you.
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's a good question. There is a requirement for the fish to be seen by one of our fisheries biologists to confirm the species. So yeah, that is one of the criteria that we need to have a positive identification of the species. So we do apologize for the inconvenience. I'm sorry?
Will pictures work? You have to see the actual fish itself.
Yeah, if anybody knows better than I do, but I believe the actual fish has to be seen in person by a Fish and Wildlife staff. And like you did the right thing to go to a certified scale to get the weight. We also have certified scales at our regional offices and fish hatcheries. So yeah, we do encourage you to try to get that fish live. You know, if you want to keep it alive, you know, do your best to do so and get it to one of our facilities to have it identified. I'm going to open this up to the general question session. The session's going a little bit longer than we anticipated. I'm going to encourage staff to try to answer questions briefly so we can handle more questions. So please, right now I'm kind of vouching for all the staff that, you know, I'm giving you permission to just kind of answer quickly so we can move on to take more questions. Please don't perceive that as being rude. Just trying to get more in before we end the session for the day. So Kyle, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. And let's open the floor to the anglers. If there's any lag time, Eric is going to read off some of the chat questions. As you prepare for that, I can answer the first one about Spruce Run Reservoir. There is an ongoing harmful algal bloom at Spruce Run. Some days when it's measured, it's there. Some days it's not. What is the state doing? These are environmental issues that are bigger and not always easy to fix. So everything's a watershed approach, right? So Mahakaway Creek, Spruce Run Creek, Norton, all the Willoughby, all the tributaries that flow into Spruce Run, you know, carry nutrients, some more than others. So we typically see these spikes in the harmful algal blooms following rain events when nutrients are swept off of the land, mainly from agriculture, some from urban areas. So Spruce Run, yes, it has an ongoing HAB. The severity can kind of come and go. And New Jersey Water Supply Authority is doing a great job monitoring that HAB. And if you have any other HAB questions, you can go to our website, and there's a link to the department's HAB website, which is a great interface, and it's going to give you updates. I actually looked at it now, and it doesn't seem to be updated at the moment, but you can expect that to be a great resource for all harmful algal blooms. Next questions.
Sean, great job on the presentations, and I was glad that the individual people in charge of certain areas were email addresses were shown because I can ask them specifically, but I do have 2 general questions. I've tried during COVID to call the offices and get some things answered for my fishing club and the newsletter I produce. But number 1, who would be the contact for follow-ups beyond the specific categories like Chris Smith in one category and Ross in another? Who would be a general point of contact at your offices?
Yeah, so we have a secretary named Cheryl Weeks out of the Lebanon field office. She fields most of our general questions. If there's things that get specific or into the weeds that she doesn't know, she answers questions about license fees, start dates of seasons, and things like that. But if we're talking fisheries management or our stocking programs, you're really going to have to go to either the biologist or the hatchery superintendent or hatchery supervisors for that. So that's that list I tried to provide for you. You can find that on the website. For example, if you're interested in invasive species, look for Chris Smith.
Exactly. Okay, and one quick question. On the website, when you update it, will all currently linked PDF files still be accessible, or are some of them possibly going to be lost in a transition?
Some of them may be lost in a transition. It's a real laborsome process that we're kind of going through now. There's going to be some old information that is going to be kind of lost. So I'm going to do my best to try to archive some of that stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of to be determined.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. About fall trout stocking. I come from the Plainfield area for fall trout stocking, but you've been using this technique of not letting us know where you're stocking on and the current day.
Yes.
I've been to places where I'm not catching anything, and I've hung around from like 7 in the morning till noon, and I've hung around with other trout fishermen. But you've done this sort of like a secret stocking to prevent people from, hanging together at any particular place where fish have been stocked in the past. I'd like to know if you're going to do that this current fall. And I don't really like it because it's not giving me an opportunity to at least catch something.
Sure. Nope, I think I have a good. Yep, no, I have a good handle for your question. We are returning to our normal spreading of information prior to COVID. So stocking schedules will be released on our website, have a trout stocking hotline, and those dates will be made available.
Okay,
we just hope you understand. Yep, we just hope you understand over the last 2 years, there was major concerns, with things like social distancing. Our hatchery staff and our drivers, were being at sometimes, very close contact with the public who wants information. So, and let's keep in mind that especially during 2020, as the pandemic was kind of getting revved up and there was a lot of uncertainties, properties were being closed. So county parks, municipal parks, some state parks were all being closed. And Fish and Wildlife, I felt as if we were very proactive in trying to minimize those high concentration events. So that's why we kind of got away from the big opening day where everybody's concentrated. We got away from releasing those schedules, but we're optimistic now that the pandemic is, hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, that it's kind of waning at this point. And yes, we will be making our schedules available. Thank you.
Work it. Yeah, work it. I work for the U.S. government, and now they're releasing us. So take that in mind.
Yeah.
Because they've had us pretty much isolated for 2 years. And now we're going back to the public, and we're going to be in the field. So
yep, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a lot of the motivation to try to get back to normal. So
Yeah.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Did you have one question
in the chat that's been?
I have one more question.
Please do.
Do you have a contact for the target ranges? I'd like to talk to somebody about a program for the gun ranges.
Yeah, if you go on our website, you can find information about regional superintendents for various areas of the state, and our hunter education folks would probably be pretty knowledgeable in that.
Yeah, I like Clinton. I use that gun range.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, sure.
Hey, Sean, there's a question in the chat about Spruce Run Reservoir and when will the water level be back up to normal level pre-dam repair?
Are we talking Spruce Run or Round Valley here?
Spruce Run, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, so as a water supply reservoir, we're kind of at the mercy of water supply needs at Spruce Run Reservoir. So we've done our best over the years to kind of work with Water Supply Authority to kind of minimize the amount of fluctuation there. We value a stable reservoir, a healthy reservoir, and allows adequate vegetation, which is really important at the base of the food web and for fish cover. So yes, Spruce Run, it'll have its fluctuations up and down. It is closely monitored, and that's about all I have for you right now. Now, I was assuming that the person, maybe since dam repair came up, I was assuming that the question was more related to Round Valley Reservoir.
That is correct. That's what he just suggested. Yep.
Okay, so that's been an extensive lowering for a number of years now. I just got a project update. The reservoir was originally supposed to be up in 2021. However, there's been, unfortunately, significant project delays, and they're looking at another year to a year and a half before Round Valley starts to come up again. So it's unfortunate, but it's due to construction delays. Yeah, feel free, at this point, if any anglers have any questions, to unmute yourself and go ahead and let them fly.
Sean, you hear me?
Yep. Sure do.
Previous to COVID, we were stocking, helped stock the muskie off of a pickup truck to supplement the spots that the main truck couldn't reach. Are we going to go back to that this year?
We're not going to go back to that this year for the use of volunteers. However, we're going to have staff basically run that same transfer truck. So the quality of the stocking should be the same, because we are going to run that particular truck. But for at least this coming year, we're not going to use volunteers for stocking. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Sean,
Hi,
this is
Sean.
Nathan. I'm just going to interrupt for a second. I posted in the chat my contact info for the gun range question. I think that was from Robert. So Robert, if you can look in the chat, my email information and contact phone number are there. Just take a look at that. Feel free to contact me, whenever you can, and I'll try and field your question. I'm the Southern Region Superintendent, but the Northern Region Superintendent recently retired.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know how to get to the chat.
Yeah, if you go to the top of your screen, you'll see a bubble. It looks like a thought bubble, a circle with a little tail off of it. If you click that, you should see a chat bar come down the right-hand side of your screen.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I see a question here from Noel. Hey Noel, how you doing? Known you for a while. I looked up, I saw your chat there. I don't believe we stocked any crappie in 2021. If Tyler's still on, you might know otherwise, but I did look on our website, and there were no crappie reported stocking for the year. And also, I'm sorry? And also the second half of your question of why do we stock muskies and trout in the same place in some places? Yeah, that's kind of an age-old question that we've dealt with. We have very limited muskie lakes in New Jersey, very, very few of them. And we understand that some of those trout may be consumed. We just put the trout in there for like an immediate seasonal fishery in places like Oxford or Mountain Lake or Hopatcong. So we fully understand, that there's probably some predation by muskie, but fisheries management is complicated. We're always trying to balance constituent interests, and we know how popular of a muskie fishery Lake Hopatcong is. We know that like 50 inchers will be caught there. There's also a contingency of people who like to fish for trout there seasonally. So fisheries management is also managing people and people's interests, and I don't see us discontinuing our muskie stocking program at Hopatcong. And years ago, when we made some recommendations to discontinue stocking trout at Lake Hopatcong, there was a great public pushback, and we decreased those numbers, but we continued to stock it. So yeah, in some cases, it may not be the absolute best use of the resource, but we're always doing our best to balance angling interests. So thanks for that question, Noel.
Hey, Sean, this is Rashawn with the South Jersey Bass Club Association. Um, is there any plans to close Banana Cove sand ponds like they did last year, like, from Memorial Day to say Labor Day? Any plans of that sort? Over.
Chris, are you more familiar with the scenario there?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I mean, it was closed last year. Manatee was one of 5 wildlife management areas that were closed during the summer due to increased traffic, and I think it was a law enforcement, issue. I haven't heard anything, recently, whether there's any intention or not. So I'd say at this point, no.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Just, if you guys had any information, if that was to possibly happen, but appreciate the insight. Over.
Yeah, Sean, this is Nathan. I can keep in contact with Fred and let him know if I hear anything, but right now, as Chris mentioned, I haven't heard about any closures.
Okay, Nate, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Nate. That was one thing that I kind of failed to do at the opening, was to kind of scan to see which division personnel were here. I was kind of taking for granted that we're primarily fisheries staff, but it's great to have Nate on board, so thank you very much. I see one microphone unmuted from a Robert. Robert, do you have a question, or did you just unmute yourself?
Sorry, I'll mute myself. I have no more questions. Thank you.
Not a problem. Same with Lou. Lou, I see you have an open mic. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, Sean. I'm Lou Martinez from the United Freshwater Anglers of New Jersey. A couple of quick questions. Round Valley, you said that's going to be down another year and a half?
That's what I was recently told. Yep.
Is that because the town is refusing to pay for the water to be pumped back into the impoundment, or what?
No, I'm not to my knowledge. What I was told, I attended a joint meeting with Water Supply Authority, Parks and Forestry, and Fish and Wildlife. And it was reported to me from Water Supply Authority that the contractor had significant delays. And I asked what the nature of those delays were, and I was told that, I know it may not be the acceptable answer, but I was told it was related, to COVID and certain delays. I don't have inside information on exactly what that means, but I was told that, some kind of relationship between a COVID event, social distancing being necessary, and then compiled with like a rain event. So when they would stage equipment to do a particular stage, and it would rain, and so there was unanticipated delays, and I really don't have more information.
Okay, once we get it back up to pool, what can be done to increase the size of the lake trout? Because every single fish that we catch is about 20 inches. They're like cookie cutters. They're all the same size.
Sure. Well, that's a trend we've seen over time. I was a regional biologist for that area for 15 plus years and closely managing that population. And we've made a lot of steps along the way to try to better manage that population. But in a nutshell, you have a reservoir that doesn't have much nutrients in it. Crystal clear water, you can see down to depths of 40 feet. Right. So there's not a lot of base at the food chain there. There's not a lot of plankton. There's not a lot of nutrients. Secondly, we have a lake trout population that when initially stocked, they were not intended to reproduce, but they did. So you have an unbridled reproducing population that doesn't really have a check there. So over the years, and folks from RVTA can certainly vouch for this, I've attended their annual meetings for over 15 years. We've worked closely to encourage the harvest of lake trout. So what can you do as an angler? You can go out there and within the legal limit, take some lakers out of the reservoir. There's a lot of mouths to feed. And the idea there is if there's less lake trout, if we can lower those densities, you'll see increased growth. We've also cut back some of the stocking numbers of our rainbow trout. We used to stock over 12,000 per year. That's a lot of mouths to feed in a reservoir that doesn't have much of a bait fish population. So we've cut that number back down to about 6,500 rainbow trout per year. So moral of the story, more fish isn't always better. It's going to result in stunting, and that's what ends up happening if you do your literature reviews across the country in places where lake trout are introduced. They reproduce wildly, and there's a lot of competition there, and you have generally a lot of small and thin fish. But thanks for the question.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
I see there's a Dan that has his mic open. Are you interested in the question?
Yeah, I have a question. What's Fish and Wildlife's position on stocking over wild and native fish populations? And is there any future consideration about changing?
Yeah, I can start to answer that question, and then I can pass it off to Ross Schramko, our wild trout biologist, if he'd like to make any finer points. But I can definitely say over the last 20 years, we've made a lot of strides in not stocking hatchery reared trout on top of our wild populations. Many of our small headwater streams that have wild trout, we've discontinued the stocking of them, not only to try to improve the wild fish fishery, but because they weren't really being utilized by anglers as much. So in many cases, we've curtailed our stocking program where we know to have wild trout. Now, on the flip side of that, we have very popular waters like the South Branch of the Raritan and the Powhatan Creek, the Flat Brook, and many others that there's such an angling demand that we really couldn't foresee discontinuing trout stocking altogether, because the wild fish populations really won't sustain the amount of angling pressure and interest of the anglers. With that said, we've even within waters like the South Branch, we assessed and we modified our stocking program. So that entire upper South Branch of the upper section of the South Branch, north of Long Valley, in recent years, we've discontinued stocking that as well. So Ross, if you want to add to that, that's fine. Dan, if you have any specific water body questions, feel free to ask that right now, or you can hold off and ask one of our regionals.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any particular waters you're concerned with?
No. It just with TU chapters, there was some questions that came up in the recent past, on the Muscatneck Kong, specifically the Point Mountain section.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, and other things we've done, now, granted, we haven't been stocking browns or brook trout, in several years, but prior to that disease issue, we're very selective in the species that we do stock. So we have policies where we do not stock brook trout on top of wild brook trout. We don't stock brown trout on top of wild brook trout. And we'll be modifying some of those stocking criteria in our upcoming cold water fisheries management plans. So generally speaking, rainbow trout are the least likely to establish a reproducing population. So there is a wild fish benefit to us stocking entirely rainbows.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Hey, Eric, how does that chat look? Are we pretty much caught up?
Yes, I believe it looks pretty caught up. I just replied to a person directly via chat, and I think that was the last chat I see. Unless some more pop up, we appear caught up.
I have a
like
question, Sean.
Sure.
Is there going to be anything done to enhance the game wardens that go out and check licenses? It seems like a win-win to me that the more money you get from people that aren't buying the licenses, as well as fines, would enhance the ability to have more conservation officers as well. So it seems to me that I've never really seen anything as far as conservation officers going out and checking licenses or anything. And I've been fishing in New Jersey since I was 15, and I'm 70.
Yeah. Well, I can assure you that they're out there. In many cases, it's to their advantage to kind of go incognito, to kind of sneak up and see what's going on and watch from afar. So I'm kind of not really surprised by that. But also, as Assistant Commissioner Golden mentioned earlier, it was very positive that we're going to be able to hire a whole new batch of conservation police officers coming on to bolster that crew. So yeah, that's a good thing. We all have a shared concern that the more enforcement you have out there is the better.
Yeah, that's great news. Thank you.
To add on to that there, I know for a fact that you got the New Jersey State Marine Police also monitoring and being made available at places like Union Lake and other WMAs. So not for sure which particular bodies of water he's referring to, but with the limited state resources as they are, you do have the New Jersey State Police Marine Division that are out there. So hopefully that should help. Over.
Yeah, I was looking at other places in Union County, which is extremely populous and heavily overfished. So it's hard to find any place where you don't go and you find tons and tons of people fighting for the same single fish.
Yeah, I mean that's a population density problem, and
Yeah.
I do know our law enforcement take those scenarios very seriously and do their best to get out. But not certainly not to make excuses, but it is very difficult to be everywhere at once. We do ask that if you see things that you find to be appropriate, people fishing during the closed season or keeping over the creel, we ask you that you stay out of it and don't confront the person. There's a hotline that you can call, the Warren DEP, and you can convey what you see. But once again, we highly encourage you not to take the law into your own hands. Don't confront someone. You never know what their interests are going to be and how willing they'll be to go to blows. So keep yourself out of it. Report things as you see them. Thank you. At this point, we're kind of overdue. I just wanted to open up the floor to our Fish and Wildlife staff. If there's any questions that you saw that didn't get answered, or if you have any refinements of points that you'd like to make, I'd like to open up the Fish and Wildlife staff if you guys have any closing remarks.
I just popped on, Sean. It's Craig Lemon at the Hackerstown Fish Hatchery.
Hey, how you doing, Craig?
Good. I listened to the whole thing. Everything looked like it went well. We had a good crew there. I just want to promote a couple things. The last two Fish and Wildlife Freshwater Fish Digests were angler photos from New Jersey anglers. So keep that in mind this year. When you're out on the water, try to snap some good photos. You could be the next cover model. And if you check out the social media sites, Instagram and Facebook, every Friday we're trying to do Go Fish Friday posts, which we're trying to highlight angler catches throughout the year. So if you catch a nice fish, it doesn't even have to be a big fish. You get a good picture with some good scenery in the background, or kids, or whatever. Send it in, and we'll try to get you guys on Go Fish Fridays.
Thanks a lot, Craig. Really appreciate you emphasizing that. Okay, well, if we have no further staff questions or comments, I definitely want to thank everybody for their participation. I think this went really well. Please reach out and let us know what you think. Let us know of topics that you'd like to hear discussed in the future. Let us know of any potential regulation changes or waters added or changed from our stocking program. Don't be a stranger. So, like I said, thanks again, everybody. We really appreciate your participation, and you help make New Jersey angling as good as it is. Thanks, everybody.